David Moyes has agreed a deal to return to Everton as manager following the departure of Sean Dyche.
Yeah, Dyche was sacked yesterday, just 3 hours before Everton's FA Cup third-round win over Peterborough, after winning just one of his last 11 games. And Moyes will make his return to management after leaving West Ham at the end of last season. The 61-year-old takes charge of Everton for a second time, 11 and a half years after leaving for Manchester United.
Moyes recently told us that he was ready to return to football but would prefer not to face a relegation battle. He rejoins the club with them sitting just 1 point above the Premier League relegation zone.
Moyes managed Everton from 2002 to 2013 before leaving to take charge of Man United, but was sacked after 10 months. Last night, Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman led the side against Peterborough, and afterwards Baines was asked about Moyes potentially rejoining the Goodison club.
Played for him, and he was a great coach to play for. He's a good man. But as far as who's the right man for the job and all that, I don't want to get dragged into the football club's in a situation where it definitely wants some stability, and I think that's been the message from the owners when they've come in. I don't think it's going to be off the bat boatloads of money and crazy things happening. I think it's stability, I think, and everyone would gladly accept that at the moment.
And here are David Moyes' achievements at Everton. During his first stint, his side finished fourth in the 2004-05 season, the club's only top four finish in the last 37 years. Moyes achieved 9 top 8 finishes, more than every other Everton Premier League manager combined. He reached the 2009 FA Cup final, the club's only cup final in the last 30 years. And Moyes also qualified for Europe 4 times in 11 seasons. They've only qualified twice in 12 years since.
Well, joining us now to react to this big news is Peter McPartland from Toffee TV. Peter, good to speak to you this evening. I don't know if you could hear the list of achievements that Will's just been reading out about David Moyes' first reign in charge. You'll know them very well, of course, but first and foremost, how are you feeling about this appointment?
I think it's an appointment that's been sort of forced on us, really. I think that the owners, the new owners, obviously would have liked to have kept Dyche to the end of the season, but the form was just going, getting worse and worse and worse. And I think, obviously, Graham Potter was mooted and Everton fans would have liked that, I think. But there's just not enough, I think, good managers around at the moment for the situation we're in. And it feels like, I think, David Moyes is that safe pair of hands that Leighton Baines was talking about there. And I think it's more, for Everton fans, I think it's more to do with the length of the contract. That might worry some Everton fans, and people don't want it to be too long-term.
They say, Ped, never go back, don't they?
Well, they do, and obviously for Everton, we had Howard Kendall 3 times, and obviously the first time was very successful, and the other 2 just weren't. So it's obviously a thing, but I've been trying to think positively, and I was thinking a couple of Everton things. Gus Hiddink came back to Chelsea and beat us in that cup final, and he went back to Chelsea. And the other one's Carlo, when he left Everton, went back to Real Madrid. He hasn't done too badly. Slightly, 2 managers who were in slightly different places than maybe David Moyes is, but I'm just trying to think positively like that.
I was going to say, Ped, don't sound delighted by the news, perhaps, but did achieve a lot at the club, and we've seen him do good things with West Ham the last couple of seasons, led them to a European trophy.
Yeah, I think, listen, for my generation, the generation who were young in the 80s, David Moyes has been the most successful manager, but, his list of achievements isn't fantastic. There's no trophies in there. There's only 1 cup final. It was great being in Europe, don't get me wrong, and that list looks better since then. He gave us stability for 11 years, and we going into Europe and some big wins. The finishes were compared to what they have been in the last 10 years, were absolutely fantastic. But I think some fans are not just worried, but just a little bit annoyed by this appointment. Just because, number one, the way David Moyes left Everton Football Club, coming back, trying to sign the likes of Fellaini and the likes, of Leighton Baines. So it doesn't suit everyone. A lot of Everton fans do want to move on and want to try and be progressive. For me, I understand why they've made that appointment. We just simply couldn't go on with Sean Dyche. There are other managers maybe we could have looked at, the likes of Fonseca, who's recently left Milan. So it's pragmatic, and I understand that. And you see what's happening at Roma at the moment, the way the Friedkins put Claudio Ranieri in there and are trying to get the stability there as well. And so it's not ideal. I don't think any Everton fan is bouncing off the walls at this announcement. A lot understand why. He is a safe pair of hands. His job is to just simply come in and get Everton up the table and hope that he has a start like he did the first time around, which was 3 wins in the first 4 games.
Well, that's the big question, Pet, isn't it? How confident are you that David Moyes can take Everton into the new stadium as a Premier League team? As we speak right now, just a point above the relegation zone. He's got back-to-back Goodison games next Wednesday against Aston Villa and then Tottenham on Sunday. 6 points there would be massively welcome, wouldn't it? Can you see yourselves climbing up the table under Moyes?
I certainly hope so, and it is a tough start. And obviously, if Everton can get one victory in those 2 games, or a couple of positive results, that'd be a great start. It's obviously after that, I think we play Brighton as well, so it is a tough start for them. When we get to February into March, there's a lot of games that Everton should be certainly getting points from. There's going to be a couple of Merseyside derbies coming up as well. So all you can hope is that we will. I just can't see it being as bad as it was under Sean Dyche. I know a lot of people thought he was a safe pair of hands, but the goal return simply wasn't enough. 15 goals was pitiful, and we just weren't creating chances. You've just got to hope that David Moyes, after not being out of the Premier League too long, can get us up the table, get us those points. And I think the results that Sean Dyche scraped, I think they're the kind of results that David Moyes can get us as well. So if he can just add a little bit of creativity to us, and obviously the window is still open. In the next couple of weeks, if we could go out and just get, maybe 1 or 2 creative players to just add to the squad and get a little bit more out of the squad, I think that's all fans are asking for.
So, Ped, let's fast forward to the end of the season and the upcoming season. Obviously, going to be moving into a wonderful new stadium for next season. Do you think if the second half of this season goes well under Moyes, he'll maybe win back the favour of some of those fans that weren't best pleased with the way he departed first time round?
It's difficult to say. I mean, I can't speak for other fans. There's a lot of, long-term resentment there for David Moyes. But we've seen in the last few years, obviously Wayne Rooney come back as well, and some people would never have seen Wayne Rooney return to Everton after what happened. We, even have Rafa Benitez as our manager. So stranger things have happened at Everton Football Club. But I think if he finishes the season strong, I think that lays the foundations, and I think that's being muted. So tonight is that the Freakins are trying to lay those foundations, and I think as long as they indicate that there is maybe a more progressive manager coming after this. I mean, there's been talk of things like a lot of Everton fans would have liked to see maybe Lee Carsley come in with David Moyes, that connection, and him maybe take over as the manager, or even Leighton Baines with Seamus Coleman. Not now, obviously, but in 2 years' time. That being part of the structure so that Everton fans see a long-term vision. I think Everton fans are worried that we get stuck with David. And it seems odd because if we get stuck with David Moyes, it means that he's done well. But I think people just want to see progressive football like so many teams in the Premier League are now playing. And, the situation we've been under Sean Dyche, it's so unusual. And obviously West Ham, I think we're in a similar position, but they've made that change this week to a manager that we looked at. So I think that's where fans want to see us go. They don't want to see us being stuck once again in the past. And that seems to be where we've been stuck very much for the past 30 years.
Yeah. Ped, you mentioned Wayne Rooney there. There are reports that Wayne Rooney could be Moyes' number 2 at Goodison Park. Would you welcome him back?
I'd always welcome Wayne back to the club, but I don't think it would be good for him where he is with his managerial situation as it is. Do you know what? If he came in and he said he was going to come in like the under-18s and work his way up, that would be something I could get behind. But I don't think he's proved himself yet. I think next to David Moyes, there needs to be someone he trusts as well. And obviously he'll have coaching staff coming with him that maybe we're at West Ham, like Billy McKinley and people like that. So I think it has to be a setup that David Moyes is confident in, can trust, and knows he's going to get the best out of. I think just latching onto players that he's managed or have been part of management in the last couple of years, I'm not sure that's what would be the safest move. But if someone like Leighton Baines was part of the setup and continued to do the job he's been doing at the club, and Seamus Coleman, who has been working on his coaching badges, if they're part of the setup and they can start working their way through to maybe in a couple of years be looked at as possible replacements for him, then I think that would get fans excited.
Just looking at Moyes' experience, Ped, in the Premier League, 697 games in charge. Only Fergie and Arsene Wenger are ahead of him. So vastly experience. Most of that, of course, with your club, 427 of those games. What do you think? You've just seen the stats on the screen there. Do you think that is why the Freaking Group have gone for him, because of just the depth of experience that he has at this level? And, of course, the aim has to be, got to be in the Premier League for next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they've been spooked a little bit by what's happened at Roma. I think everything seems to be going fine at Roma, and they got into this season. He appointed De Rossi, who is a club legend at Roma, only secondary to Totti, I think. And I think that not working and the backlash from the fans, I think that's really spooked them, and they've gone through another manager. Now they settled on Ranieri to the end of the season. Now, obviously, he was in retirement, so it's slightly different. He's willing to take them to the end of the season and look to appoint the next one, using his experience. I think they're looking at something similar, but David Moyes feels like he's still a manager who's got a lot to offer. So at 61, he's obviously not finished. He probably didn't want to leave West Ham. So he's probably pushed for a little bit longer, and you can see why these people who haven't been in football that long, obviously they own Roma, but they haven't got lots of experience. And as I said, I think what's happened at Roma this season has probably shook them up, and the investment they've put into Everton, and obviously with that stadium, it would be an utter embarrassment for everyone involved if Everton go into that new season and they're not in the Premier League.
Ped, it's worth just rattling through quickly, isn't it? I mean, in the 11 and a half years since David Moyes took that Manchester United job after Sir Alex, Roberto Martinez, including caretakers, David Unsworth, Ronald Koeman, Unsworth again, Allardyce, Marco Silva, Duncan Ferguson, Carlo Ancelotti, Rafa Benitez, Duncan Ferguson again, Lampard, Dyche, and then obviously now Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman as caretakers. So many different styles, particularly I'm thinking from the Ancelotti days. So what does this say about the Freakins and the style of football that they will want to play? Because David Moyes, there are a lot of Everton fans I've heard on the radio today saying it's almost like for like style-wise, which is perhaps a little bit unfair with Dyche and Moyes, but where do you sit with that?
I think it's massively unfair on David Moyes. I think, there was times under David Moyes where the football was very agricultural, but there was also times when the football was really good. The last season under him, there was some really exciting football to watch. Obviously, we don't know what he's going to provide this season, because it comes with the players. If he thinks he can get more out of the players, then it might be a little bit more attacking. But there has been such a mixed bag. Even when we appointed Dyche, there was talk that they were looking at Bielsa at the same time. It's the players have been all over the place in the last 10 years, as well as the managers, and that's been a major issue. You've had players left over from one manager, then the next manager plays a completely different style. What the Freakins have to do now is use David Moyes as the first piece to put the club back together, and then that be the foundations for the next manager who's going to be long-term, and there is a vision. And obviously that vision includes a director of football as well. Kevin Felwell's got a major part to play in this as well, but his contract is out at the end of the season as well. So where does he fit in? These are things that have to happen quickly, because I think there has been a little bit of criticism in the last week or so about the Freakins, because there's so much to do at Everton in such a little space of time. Obviously, staying in the Premier League, there was the manager, which they've sorted now. There's the director of football. There's a lot of players out of contract as well, so they have to be sorted out. So there's no time, and I think this is the first step to getting those foundations in place. And I think with David Moyes, what you get is you get a manager, but you also get someone who understands the other side of football, bringing players in. He's a little bit part director of football in many ways, and I don't know what that's going to do for Kevin Felwell, but I think for the Freakins, that seems to be the way they want to establish their Everton going forward.
Ped, just very, very quickly, finally, where do you expect to finish in the table now this season?
14th, I'd say, somewhere around 14th. If we can get to 40 points, then wherever the place is, I'll be happy. But as long as we get to 40 points, then I think we should be absolutely fine.
OK, 23 points to go then to get there. Ped, thank you very much for speaking to us on Sky Sports News this evening.
Thanks.